So let me start with exactly what happened in the last 24 hours, because the mainstream media is telling you two completely separate stories, and neither one of them is giving you the complete picture. Story number one. Iran launched waves of ballistic missiles at Israel last night. Multiple strikes, coordinated, deliberate. Story number two. This morning, Iran called off further attacks, stopped, pulled back, and then Sadegh Larijani, head of Iran's Expediency Discernment Council, stood up and announced that what happened last night was not an attack. It was, and I am quoting him directly, the formal declaration of a strategic doctrine. Now I want you to hold those two things together simultaneously, because most people cannot. Most people look at Iran launching missiles and think escalation. Most people look at Iran stopping and think retreat. And mainstream media is running both of these stories in separate segments, as if they are contradictions. They are not contradictions. They are the same message, delivered in two parts, to two different audiences, at exactly the right time. And today I want to spend the next 25 minutes showing you why what Iran did in the last 24 hours is not the most dangerous missile Iran has ever launched. It is the most dangerous signal Iran has ever sent, because a missile can be intercepted, a Patriot battery can shoot it down, an Iron Dome can track it and destroy it. You cannot intercept a signal. You cannot shoot down a doctrine. And America, right now, has no answer for what Iran just demonstrated it can do. Let us go. Part 1. What actually happened? The precise timeline. I need to give you the exact sequence because the order matters more than any individual event. On June 7, 2026, United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and seized between $12 and $24 billion of Iranian frozen assets. This money was designated to compensate Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait for war damages. ABC 7 News. This was not just a financial measure. For weeks, through the Pakistani mediation channel, Iran had one non-negotiable precondition for any ceasefire: release our frozen assets. That was the only door to any diplomatic resolution. On the morning of June 7th, America did not just refuse to open that door. They locked it permanently and handed the key to Riyadh. That same afternoon, Israel struck the Dahieh neighborhood in Beirut, crossing a red line Iran had announced publicly in 3 languages, 5 days in advance. Iran's Mosaic defense, 31 independent IRGC provincial commands with pre-delegated firing authority, activated automatically within hours, not days, hours. Then on June 8th, Trump posted on social media that Israel and Iran are looking to do an immediate ceasefire, writing that final negotiations on peace are proceeding. ABC 7 News, and simultaneously, Larijani announced that Tehran's attacks on Israel in defense of Lebanon indicate the formal declaration of a strategic doctrine, sending a clear message that if one side of the axis of resistance is attacked, it will trigger a response that extends beyond geographical borders and will change the region's equations. ABC 7 News attack, stop, doctrine announcement, ceasefire signal, all within 24 hours. Now ask yourself, does that sequence look like chaos to you? Does that look like a desperate country lashing out randomly? Or does it look like a carefully choreographed demonstration? Part 2. What strategic doctrine actually means. I need to explain this phrase because it is the most important 2 words spoken in this entire conflict, and almost nobody in mainstream media is unpacking what it actually means. When a country announces a strategic doctrine, it is not making a threat, it is not issuing a warning, it is not negotiating, it is publishing the rules of its own behavior permanently and irrevocably. Think about what Iran just published. The rule is this: if any member of the axis of resistance is attacked, anywhere by anyone, Iran will respond directly, beyond geographical borders, automatically. Not after deliberation, not after a cabinet meeting, not after consulting the supreme leader, automatically. This is Mosaic defense elevated to a national strategic principle. Iran took the military doctrine we discussed in the last video, 31 provincial commands with pre-delegated firing authority, and expanded it from a military tactic into a geopolitical commitment. And here is why this changes everything America thought it understood about this conflict. Before this doctrine announcement, America's strategy was built on a specific assumption. The assumption was this: Iran calculates costs and benefits before every action. If you make the cost of action high enough, Iran will not act. Maximum pressure, maximum sanctions, maximum military strikes. Make the cost unbearable, and Iran will negotiate. That assumption is now dead, because a strategic doctrine is specifically designed to remove cost-benefit calculation from the equation. Iran is saying publicly and permanently, we are not calculating anymore. The trigger has been set. The conditions are published. When the condition is met, the response is automatic. You cannot negotiate with an automatic response. You cannot threaten an automatic response. You cannot deter an automatic response by making it expensive, because the whole point of the doctrine is that the price has already been pre-accepted. America's entire strategic framework for this conflict just became obsolete in one press statement. Part 3. Why stopping was more powerful than continuing. This is the part that I think is the single most misunderstood element of what happened in the last 24 hours. And I want to be very precise here. Iran stopping its attacks this morning was not weakness. Iran stopping its attacks this morning was the demonstration. Let me explain exactly what I mean. If Iran had continued launching missiles, if it had escalated further, the story would have been about Iranian aggression, about Iranian desperation, about how America and Israel need to respond even more forcefully. The media narrative writes itself. Iran is out of control. Iran is lashing out. Iran must be stopped. But Iran did not continue. Iran launched, demonstrated full operational capability, made its doctrine statement through Larijani, and then stopped, on its own terms, at a moment of its own choosing, without any military pressure from America or Israel forcing it to stop. And that sequence, launch, demonstrate, stop, announce doctrine, sends a message that no amount of continued missile fire could have sent. The message is this: we are not desperate, we are not out of control, we are not lashing out. We launched because we chose to launch, we stopped because we chose to stop, and we will launch again, automatically, immediately, without deliberation, the moment the published trigger condition is met. Think about what that means for American military planning. America can plan against a desperate enemy. America can plan against an irrational enemy. America has wargamed those scenarios extensively. America cannot plan against an enemy that has published its own trigger conditions, demonstrated it can execute those conditions with precision, and then demonstrated it can stop with equal precision, because the uncertainty is now total. Not because Iran is unpredictable, but because Iran has made itself perfectly predictable, and the condition that triggers the response is entirely within Israel's control, not America's. Part 4. The on-off switch is the real weapon. Since more than 5 weeks of fighting, the United States and Iran agreed to a ceasefire that included Israel. In the following weeks, the conflict shifted to a game of brinkmanship between the United States and Iran over restricted access to the Strait of Hormuz. Encyclopedia Britannica. In that context, what Iran demonstrated last night is not a missile capability. It is a switch. An on-off switch for regional war. And Iran just showed America, Israel, the Gulf states, China, Russia, and every government watching that Iran's hand is on that switch. Not America's hand, not Israel's hand, Iran's hand. Now think about what that means for every actor in this conflict. For Israel, every military operation in Lebanon now carries a guaranteed automatic response from Iran. Not a possible response, not a probable response, a guaranteed automatic response. Every Israeli military commander now has to calculate not just the immediate military objective of any operation, but the automatic Iranian response that will follow. For the Gulf states, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, they are watching a country that just demonstrated it can turn regional war on and off at will. And America, which is supposed to be their security guarantor, has no answer for this switch. The Patriot batteries can intercept missiles. They cannot intercept the decision to launch them. For America, Trump's blockade of Iranian ports remains in place until a deal is reached. But the blockade assumes Iran has more to lose from continued pressure than from continued conflict. The strategic doctrine announcement just invalidated that assumption. Iran is telling Washington, your pressure does not change our trigger. Our trigger is published, it is automatic, and you cannot pressure an automatic system into changing its behavior. ABC 7 News. And for China and Russia, they are watching the most important geopolitical demonstration of 2026. A country under maximum military and economic pressure just showed that it can conduct a precision military operation, make a formal strategic doctrine announcement, and then execute a controlled ceasefire, all within 24 hours, without losing operational coherence or strategic discipline. That is not a broken country. That is a country that has found its strategic identity. Part 5. What America's silence is telling you. Trump wrote that final negotiations on peace are proceeding, subject to ignorance or stupidity getting in its way. ABC 7 News. I want you to read that sentence very carefully, because that sentence is doing something very specific. It is giving America an exit from a situation it did not fully control. Think about the timeline again. America seized Iranian assets on June 7th, closing the diplomatic door permanently. Israel struck Dahieh, crossing Iran's published red line. Iran's Mosaic defense activated automatically. Exactly as advertised, exactly as Iran said it would. Iran launched, then stopped, then announced a strategic doctrine. And then Trump, the man who said I call the shots, Netanyahu has no choice, posted about ceasefire negotiations proceeding. Not about Iranian aggression, not about further military response, not about escalation, about negotiations proceeding. That is not the language of a superpower that just watched its regional partner humiliate it. That is the language of two sides who both need an exit ramp and are now using the ceasefire signal to find one. Because Iran demonstrated something last night that changed the calculation for everyone in the room. Iran demonstrated that it can control the escalation dial precisely, turn it up, turn it down, announce the doctrine, signal the ceasefire, all in 24 hours. And when your adversary can do that, when they have demonstrated that level of operational and strategic discipline under maximum pressure, the rational response is not more escalation. The rational response is to find the exit that lets both sides preserve their public narrative. Trump gets to say, "I brought peace. I called the shots." Iran gets to say, "We declared our doctrine. We demonstrated our capability. We stopped on our terms." Both sides get their story. And underneath that story, Iran's on-off switch remains exactly where it was, in Tehran's hands. 3 things to watch. Watch whether Israel actually reduces its operations in Lebanon in the next 72 hours. Iran's doctrine is explicit. Attacks on the axis of resistance trigger automatic response. If Israel continues striking Lebanon at the same tempo, Iran's mosaic defense activates again automatically. If Israel slows down, you have your answer about whether Washington quietly communicated a message to Tel Aviv that the demonstration was sufficient. Watch the IAEA language in the next quarterly report. Foreign policy noted that preventing an Iranian nuclear bomb is only getting harder. When Iran demonstrates this level of strategic discipline and operational capability under maximum pressure, the nuclear calculation changes. Watch for language like unable to verify and significant uncertainty. That is the technical community telling you the threshold is moving. House of Commons Library. And watch the oil markets and treasury bonds together. Iran's foreign minister stated that Iran intends to devise a new arrangement to ensure secure maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. That sentence is not reassurance. That sentence is Iran telling the world that the current arrangement, American naval blockade, American control of Hormuz Passage, is not the permanent reality. A new arrangement means Iran's terms, not America's terms. Watch what those terms look like when they become visible. ABC 7, News 1 Final question. This morning, Donald Trump posted about ceasefire negotiations proceeding. Last night, Iran launched waves of missiles at Israel. And in between those two events, Iran's senior official stood up and announced a strategic doctrine that makes Iran's response to any attack on its allies automatic, guaranteed, and beyond geographical borders. So let me ask you the question nobody on cable television is asking. If Iran is truly as broken as Washington claims, no navy, no air force, no economy, 250% inflation, military destroyed, how does a broken country launch a precision military operation, make a formal strategic doctrine announcement, execute a controlled ceasefire, and force the most powerful man in the world to post about peace negotiations, all within 24 hours? Because what Iran just showed America is not a missile capability. It is something far more dangerous. It is a demonstration that Iran controls the switch, and America does not know how to turn it off.